And so here's the other. So I'm an accountant, and so I always like to come back and try to measure things in terms of EBITDA and all that good stuff for working capital. But I gotta think, for you, what we're talking about is two tremendously different paths, and one of them they don't even go down the path. They're not going to go down the path of not having this value creation plan developed and memorialized. They now have one. So when you think about the value that's added, is it, the things that make sense to me is you avoid the portfolio companies that tread water or start to trip covenants and all the pain that goes with that. Shorter hold periods, higher valuations, a more engaged management team. What stands out to you in terms of when you talk to people after the fact, what do they remember and care about the most that you help them from a results perspective?
There are two constituencies there to consider. One is the sponsor, and among the things you learn is that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So we learn together that if we adopt things that help us identify, it's almost like a stoplight principle. Are we picking up on the ambers soon enough? And it could be that there's some metrics that we aren't observing.
Sure.
Case in point, by their nature, private equity deal teams are some of the most brilliant financial engineers you can find anywhere. Now, these people are really, really sharp. The operational stuff that people like you and I bring to the table complements that, because we've run stuff before and we fix stuff before. And if you think about this, an investor naturally may be skewed in their perspective toward output metrics, revenue, EBITDA, maybe the margins between the two. It makes sense. But particularly in a long cycle business, if you don't know inputs and process metrics as leading indicators, you can be in trouble overnight. And when I lectured MBA classes, I say, let me give you an example of somebody who was wildly profitable until the day they filed bankruptcy. How is that possible? So a shipbuilder, he finished his last ship, there isn't another order. Oh. So a lot of these businesses can have very complex, elongated, protracted revenue cycles. And on those inputs, keep in mind I mentioned earlier about Salesforce effectiveness. Do you have pipeline management metrics that essentially are conversion and cycle times? When you get into productivity, what kind of cycle times? You got tack time, you got your own lexicon in lean, but capacity. Are you managing your capacity well? Do you have quality issues? Well, those are big dollar items. So are we measuring the right stuff? And when you think about the likelihood that a smaller company may not have the systems it needs to support a company that the mantra in private equity is 3 times as big in 3 years.
Right.
It doesn't get any easier after they're twice as big, so why not start now? And that's a big bullet to bite, and it traces back to why I strongly encourage due diligence on IT. It may not change what you pay for the deal, but it does help you understand what you really bought. But keep in mind, a lot of these guys, other than the tightly held people that sole majority interest typically, a lot of the people that are running functions now have options, which they may not have entirely appreciated because they've never been exposed to them before.
Sure.
But when the results of a successful exit produce this big check that just paid for their kids' college education, this is a true story detour. One of the more successful ones I ever worked with and for, that you coincidentally were also under the roof at the same time, the COO had his moments when he probably would have preferred to read my obituary. about me asking questions about
Yes.
why I was doing the 2-year-old thing,
Right.
why until we got the
Right.
root cause. Well, I was invited to the closing dinner. And when we were standing outside, waiting on our cars to come from valet, he walked up to me. I thought, uh-oh, I'm about to get slugged, because he could have hurt me. He put the biggest bear hug
Wow.
in my life on me and was very, very emotional. And he said, thank you, I get it now. Because he had a lot of kids and they all had their college paid for. He
Right.
got it. That, to me, can't put a price on that.